Greetings Internet. Way back for VEDA 2014, I did a little book review of Peter F. Hamilton's The Reality Dysfunction, and that's become one of those odd videos that still to this day gets a regular trickle of consistent views. For whatever reason, it's something that matches things that people search for regularly. None of these people who are watching it are subscribed to me, and none of them seem to ever stay and watch any other of my videos, but it still regularly tops my most viewed in the last 28 days list. It's actually my fourth most watched video of all time, and still gets the odd comment every few months. So today, let's do another book review. This time I'm going to talk about a series of books called the Lightbringer series. These are by an author called Brent Weeks, whose previous books were known as the Night Angel trilogy, which I also really enjoyed. The Lightbringer series consists of 5 books, the first of which, The Black Prism, came out in 2010, and after that there was The Blinding Knife, The Broken Eye, The Blood Mirror, and The Burning White, every couple of years-ish since then. Because I enjoyed the Night Angel trilogy, I've been meaning to read this basically since it first came out, but I only actually got around to starting at the end of last year. But you know, when you're dealing with an ongoing series, I generally find it is better to wait until they're finished and then read the whole thing together. Otherwise you can end up kind of stuck waiting for the next one, and then often you can find yourself having to reread everything when the next one comes out because you've forgotten what was happening. I have a hard enough time getting around to read books the first time, never mind going back to them for a second. I do actually own the first book of this series on actual paper, not even just Kindle, and it's been sat on my shelf since 2010 waiting for me to get around to reading it. But in the end, as I mentioned earlier in VEDA, I've been recently trying out audiobooks, so I actually ended up listening to all of this series. I've got to say, it was a very good production. This is a fantasy series of magic, battles and political intrigue, and the main thing I really enjoyed about this was the magic system, which was not really like something I've ever read before. Everything here is based on colours. A certain small percentage of the population has a natural ability for magic, and that magic manifests itself in the ability to absorb and then use different colours. And you know, some people can only do one of those colours. You can do some red magic or you can do some green magic. A smaller percentage can use 2 colours, usually colours that are next to each other on the spectrum. So you could be, say, a blue-green bichrome. A smaller percentage can use more than 2 colours, but at that point they're just all grouped together as polychromes. And then of course there's the rarest of them all, the full spectrum polychrome, one of which is generally elected the Prism, because they have the power to split white light itself rather than just using a single colour. And each of these colours has different properties and can be used for different things. Red tends to be more gelatinous and can be set on fire. Blue and green are a bit more solid and used for construction and things like that. Yellow's a bit more tricky and tends to evaporate unless you get it absolutely perfect, but it also can let off light, so it's used in torches and things like that. Orange kind of affects the mind and can do things like cast hexes, and it even goes down into things like ultraviolet, which is used for things like secret messages, because only other people who are sensitive to the superviolet can see those messages, for example. And down at the other end too, there's sub-red, which is obviously infrared and is to do with heat and things like that. And you know, there's a whole central system of government and training known as the Chrome area, where all these people who find out they can use colour to cast magic go and train. And of course the story starts with a young boy in a backwater village that no one's ever heard of, who doesn't expect to make much with his life thanks to a brewing war between the Chrome area and some people who don't believe their ideals. He gets thrust into this world and it goes from there. The story is told from the point of view of multiple different characters, one of which is this young boy, one of which is the current Prism. There's various families and countries all vying for power and different plans and all sorts of things going on. And I don't really want to say too much more without getting into spoilers. I think I've maybe painted enough of a slightly interesting introductory picture. Obviously this is a 5-book series, so things get a lot more complicated as we go through it. Personally, I thoroughly enjoyed pretty much all of it, with the exception, I have to say, of book 4, The Blood Mirror. At that point there was quite a few twists in the story that I didn't see coming at all, and they kind of changed the meaning of what had happened before. There was also quite a few new additions to the lore about how the magic system worked, which kind of suddenly appeared out of nowhere. These were things that in theory were forbidden by the ruling Chrome area, so I guess that kind of explains why you wouldn't have heard of them yet, but it did seem to just that there weren't any hints about that, and it just suddenly appeared out of nowhere. And it also felt like not a lot actually happened in that book. It seemed like it was just spinning its wheels, waiting for us to get to the finale. It was very much a bit of a bridge story, and so that was very much, for me at least, the weakest link in this whole thing. But after reading the 5th book, I found myself not so bothered anymore by that. It seemed to me to actually stick the landing, which I was worried it wasn't going to do. It does actually seem that this is one of those fairly rare cases where a huge long series was planned from the beginning. It wasn't just being made up as he went along. I've seen that too many times where I've been through a series and it's been really interesting, but they've just obviously never really known quite how to end it, whereas this one, taken as a whole, is a lot more consistent. There were quite a few different plot threads and bits of information that was, for me at least, never really quite expanded on enough, but I guess at least that leaves the possibilities open for returning to this world at some point in the future, even if it's not through the same set of characters. And so that's my brief introduction to the Lightbringer series. Not entirely perfect, but thoroughly enjoyable. Links in the description if you want to find a copy. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again tomorrow.